Have you ever found yourself investing in someone who seemed to be everything you were looking for, only for them to gradually reveal behaviors that slowly eroded your trust? Perhaps you are in a relationship where promises and words do not match actions, and you feel like you are constantly searching for answers, for a sign of loyalty. In this video, we will explore behaviors that, when ignored, undermine the foundation of any healthy relationship. If you are tired of disappointments, of feeling used or manipulated, it is time to open your eyes to behaviors that cannot be tolerated, no matter how difficult it may be to accept. Let's speak directly. Trust is a treasure, and it needs to be protected. Not everyone deserves your respect and emotional investment. Here, you will understand which behaviors should raise the highest alert. Behaviors that should not be ignored if you value your peace and integrity. If you are new to the channel, subscribe so you don't miss the upcoming videos. And if you are already part of this community and know that great content is on the way, click the like button to motivate me to bring more videos like this in the future. It is time to protect your heart and set boundaries that reflect the respect you deserve. Shall we begin? One of the most toxic behaviors is negligence. And I'm not just talking about a lack of care for the small everyday things, but a lack of responsibility that manifests in impulsive actions, unkept promises, and plans that never come to fruition. Negligence gradually undermines trust and sows conflict, affecting the foundation of any healthy relationship, security, and tranquility. Imagine a castle you are building together with someone. Each brick represents a commitment, a promise, a shared value. Now, imagine that person neglecting the construction, leaving gaps, ignoring the parts that need attention. In a short time, you find yourself living in an insecure place, always waiting for something to collapse. As Seneca said, time reveals the truth. And the truth is that negligence destroys relationships because it is a symptom of disinterest and lack of commitment. Believe me, I have been through this, and I learned that negligence is one of the biggest warning signs in a relationship. Someone who is negligent with what they have will inevitably be negligent with you, with your feelings, with your story, and worse, with the future you could build together. Now I want you to stop and reflect with me. Have you ever found yourself dedicating energy to someone who did not reciprocate, who always seemed to forget or minimize what was important to you? It is painful, and I know, because deep down, all we want is to be alongside someone who sees us, respects us, and values us. Negligence is a form of disregard that hurts silently, but deeply. When someone cannot or does not care to give due attention to the details, how can you trust that they will be there in decisive moments? Life is made up of important moments, and we need people who are present in them, not just physically, but emotionally. This is where the respect we must have for ourselves comes in. I'm not saying that we need to judge or point fingers, but rather that we should reflect on the type of person we allow by our side. A person who constantly neglects their commitments and responsibilities within a relationship is unlikely to be willing to grow or truly commit. They choose the easy path of omission, of let it go. And in doing so, they also choose not to respect what you are building. How do you feel when you look at this? How do you feel seeing that the other person does not place the same value on what you are building? Comment below if you have ever experienced something like this. Share with me. You know, the first step to freeing yourself from this situation is recognizing that you deserve someone who does not neglect, but who is truly committed. Someone who is willing to place each brick with you, to build together, without gaps or excuses. And it's not about perfection. We all make mistakes and have our moments, but negligence goes beyond that. It is a pattern of behavior, a constant choice not to care, not to safeguard, not to be truly present. It is the difference between someone who wants to grow with you and someone who is just passing through, without worrying about the impact of their actions. Therefore, if you are with someone like this, ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth insisting on a relationship where only you are putting in the effort, the energy, the genuine intention? Believe me, choosing yourself and opting for people who also choose to be present is the greatest act of love you can do. And if you, like me, have gone through something like this, share it in the comments. Let's share experiences, because sharing is one of the greatest antidotes against the loneliness that these behaviors often bring us. After all, we are all seeking something deeper and more genuine, and the journey becomes lighter when we are not alone. After reflecting on negligence, let us speak about something that might be even more devastating: betrayal and deceit. If negligence is like slow erosion, betrayal is like a storm that arrives without warning. destroying everything in its path and leaving a void where trust once existed. I want to share a personal story. In a relationship I had, I believed I had found someone who was truly by my side, someone I could rely on, who shared the same dreams. It was a time of building and giving, where I truly saw myself walking alongside that person. But one day the truth came to light. I discovered that while I was dedicating myself to the relationship, this person was involved in a game of illusions and lies, keeping secrets that shattered all the trust I had placed in them. Betrayal does not just destroy the moment, it transforms everything that was built into something uncertain. How can you trust again when what was true turns out to be a lie? The sweet words, the glances, all the moments together, it's as if nothing was real. The lingering feeling is one of having been deceived so deeply that it seems impossible to rebuild any bond of loyalty. It was during this period that I learned an important lesson. Trust is a daily choice. It is renewed with each action and destroyed by a simple act of deceit. At that moment, I understood that true love is not built on empty promises, and much less on half-truths. Aristotle once said that friendship and trust are formed on the basis of virtue, and this is an unchanging truth. Today, when I recall this story, I see how fundamental it is to choose carefully with whom we build our deepest bonds, because a person who betrays and deceives us not only disappoints us, they deprive us of the ability to trust again, and this is a pain that carries consequences for a long time. Now I ask you, have you ever gone through something like this? Share here because I know how important it is to vent. Sometimes, we need to get things out to find a new meaning and make space for something that is truly worthwhile. After confronting the impact of betrayal, another behavior that can be equally destructive is constant conflict, and I'm not talking about occasional minor arguments, but about someone who seems always ready for a fight, who turns any small difference into a storm. I went through this during a phase of my life where, at the slightest sign of disagreement, conversations turned into battles. It was as if nothing was sufficient to maintain peace. Every conversation became a minefield, and I felt that I had to tread carefully, not knowing which word might trigger the next confrontation. Living like this is exhausting. Peace becomes a distant dream, and harmony something that seems unattainable. I remember one specific night when we argued about something trivial, perhaps a detail of our day. Deep down, I don't even recall the exact reason, but what stood out was the feeling of being trapped in an endless cycle. The truth is, it doesn't matter the reason, but the effect that the constant pattern of conflict has on us. Gradually, we lose the desire to talk, to open our hearts, because we already know the outcome. Another argument. Over time, I learned that healthy relationships are those where dialogue overcomes conflict. As the philosopher Epictetus said, men are not disturbed by things, but by the view they take of them. And this thought helped me realize that harmony is a conscious choice, and that a constantly conflictive person is unlikely to seek the peace we need. Now I would like to know, have you ever experienced something like this? Have you found yourself trying to maintain peace where the other person only seemed to see problems? Comment here, share your experience, because together we can reflect on the value of a tranquil environment, where we can be ourselves without fear of the next conflict. Another profoundly toxic behavior is defamation. This might be one of the most subtle and painful, as it involves manipulation and often lies that, when spread, damage our reputation. I have also been a victim of this. In a past relationship, I noticed that after each disagreement, small rumors began to circulate around me. Strange comments, different glances, until a close friend called me to talk and told me what they had heard. Distorted stories, as if I were the villain in situations that, in reality, I had not even caused. The pain of realizing that someone we trust uses our story against us is indescribable. Trust turns into a weapon, and what once seemed a strong bond reveals itself to be a trap. Only those who have been through it understand the weight of seeing their own image disfigured, of realizing that someone we love uses lies to manipulate others' perception of us. Defamation is a silent betrayal, a mark that leaves invisible but deep scars. It is something that affects not only our trust, but also the way we see ourselves. As Seneca said, words are a powerful weapon. When used to destroy, they can cause damage that lasts much longer than any physical wound. So I ask, have you ever been the target of manipulation or defamation? Have you ever felt your image being distorted by someone you trusted? Comment here, share this experience, because exposing the truth is a powerful step towards reclaiming our peace and our integrity. After witnessing the impacts of defamation and constant conflict, let us now discuss irresponsibility. A lack of commitment and the inability to acknowledge mistakes are behaviors that, over time, erode trust and plant the seed of uncertainty. I have experienced this up close. It was like being in a dance without rhythm, where I took a step forward and the other person was always one step behind, never keeping up. There was a feeling of carrying the relationship alone, without the support that is so essential to move forward. And when something went wrong, well, the responsibility was never theirs. It was always excuses, justifications, and an inability to simply say, yes, I was wrong. To be honest, what frustrated me most was realizing that, in the face of mistakes, the person never seemed to truly reflect or learn from their failures. A mature relationship is one where both parties take responsibility, correct the course, and move forward. Irresponsibility, however, destroys this cycle because it places everything on one person's shoulders, while the other remains comfortable with their excuses. It was then that I realized a painful truth. Trust requires responsibility. As Marcus Aurelius said, the soul that knows what it wants is impenetrable to error. Irresponsibility, on the other hand, leaves gaps and makes us doubt, always questioning whether the person truly values what we are trying to build. And you? Have you ever been through something like this? Do you feel that you are carrying the weight of a relationship where only you take responsibility? Comment below, share your story, because freedom begins when we understand that we deserve someone who bravely takes responsibility for their own mistakes and commitments. In addition to irresponsibility, there is another behavior that silently consumes the joy of a relationship: constant pessimism. It is like living with someone who brings a cloud of negativity to every situation, preventing anything from flourishing with lightness and optimism. Living with pessimism is exhausting. I remember a phase when no matter what I did, the other person always found a but to belittle or diminish it. If I suggested a trip, it was, "It won't work out." If I talked about a plan, it was, "That will never work." Over time, I realized that this negative energy was draining my own will to live, as it was like carrying a weight I never chose. It was strange because initially I thought I could infect this person with my optimism, but gradually I realized that their negativity was like an impenetrable shield, a choice they made repeatedly. It was then that I understood. No one changes the essence of someone who does not want to change. I remember the words of Epictetus, who said, "It is not what happens to us, but how we react to it that matters," and that made perfect sense to me. Constant negativity is a reflection of how the person views life, and if they are not willing to change, nothing we do will alter this outlook. So, if you have also felt the weight of being alongside someone who always sees the dark side of everything, share your experience, because only when we talk about it do we realize that we deserve companionship that inspires growth and does not limit us to the darkness of doubt. Don't leave the video now, because the next reflections are essential for us to understand what we truly want by our side. After understanding the impact of pessimism and irresponsibility, let us talk about something that can be even more treacherous: hypocrisy and deceit. Imagine walking alongside someone in a forest, surrounded by ancient and tranquil trees that seem eternal. Gradually, you begin to notice that the ground ahead has camouflaged holes. The person beside you says they know the way well, that you are safe. But when you look back, you realize there are only masks, phrases thrown to the wind, empty promises. This is the experience of living with a hypocritical and deceitful person. One day, they are one thing; the next, they are another, depending on who is around or who might benefit them the most. It is like trying to catch water with your hands. No matter how much you trust, everything slips away. Everything is uncertain, and all that remains are doubts. A lack of integrity is like quicksand. The more you try to build on it, the more you sink. I remember a relationship where this became evident. In the beginning, everything seemed sincere, but I soon realized that when opportunities or conveniences arose, the person changed their stance, values, and even their behaviors. It was as if I was alongside someone who wore different masks depending on the situation, and that is what hurts the most. Hypocrisy turns every gesture into something empty, where you start to question what is real and what is merely appearance. Have you ever experienced something like this? Have you felt alongside someone whose loyalty was shaped by the interest of the moment? Leave your comment and share, because recognizing these patterns is the first step to freeing ourselves from the quicksand of deceit. And as if hypocrisy were not enough, there is still a behavior that conceals something even more sinister: cruelty and manipulation. This is the person who sees others as pieces on a board, willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to achieve their own objectives. Imagine someone who, to protect themselves from the rain, hides under an umbrella, but instead of making room, pushes you out, leaving you in the storm while maintaining their own comfort. Cruelty and manipulation are like this: cold and calculated actions, where the sole objective is personal benefit, even if it comes at the expense of the well-being of those around. I went through such a situation. It was as if I were part of an invisible game, where every word, every gesture, was used to control me, to shape me. I discovered, too late, that the smile I saw was a facade, and that behind it, there was a cruel interest, a desire to use me for their own ends. Being with someone like this is like living in a dark forest, where every path leads to a trap, and every time we try to free ourselves, the person finds a new way to entangle us, to trap us, to involve us in a web of manipulation. As the philosopher Diogenes said, selfishness is the essence of tyranny, and this is exactly what characterizes a cruel and manipulative person, an invisible tyranny that corrodes the freedom of those around them. And you? Have you ever felt like you were being thrown out into the storm while the other person sheltered themselves without remorse? After talking about manipulation and falseness, it is essential to address something we often overlook: ignoring intuitions and warnings. I had a dear friend named Ricardo who shared with me a story from his youth. He was in a relationship where, from the outset, friends and family were warning him that something was wrong. However, Ricardo always made an excuse, thought he knew the situation better, and ignored the whispers of his own intuition. It was as if he were driving a car on a road full of warning signs, but he preferred to look to the horizon, ignoring the imminent danger. Over time, what his friends had warned about began to come true. Small signs of disrespect, controlling behaviors, and eventually, coldness and indifference became constant. Every time he ignored a warning, he sank a little deeper, and the emotional weight only grew. The philosopher Plato said, "Ignorance is the root and trunk of all evil." And here, the choice to ignore intuitions and warnings was like planting a seed of suffering, which one day inevitably blossomed into pain. It is inspiring to see how Ricardo, after this experience, learned to listen to his intuitions. He told me that today, any sign, no matter how small, deserves to be respected. And if he could give advice, it would be to never ignore the warnings that come from the heart. If you have ever been through something like this, if you have ignored that inner voice telling you that something was not right, share it here. Sometimes, by listening to similar stories, we strengthen ourselves to trust our own intuition more. Another behavior that marked the life of a friend of mine, Luisa, was her partner's alcoholism. In the beginning, it seemed harmless. Outings to parties, a drink or two on weekends. But, little by little, the situation got out of control. Being alongside someone who gives in to alcohol is like building a castle by the sea. With each wave, the ground disappears a little more, and stability turns into uncertainty. Luisa described the feeling as living with two people. The sober man she knew was affectionate and attentive, but under the influence of alcohol, he became unpredictable and often aggressive. This duality, this irresponsible and unpredictable behavior, was corroding her trust and security. She never knew who she would find at the end of each day. It was then that she finally decided to leave the relationship and reclaim her own peace. The philosopher Epictetus said, "Nothing is enough for him who is not satisfied with what he has." Luisa's partner, unfortunately, never acknowledged that he had a problem, and with every excuse, every new, "I can stop whenever I want," she saw the abyss between them widen. Trust is a fragile pillar, and under the influence of alcohol, it can crumble with frightening ease. If you have ever experienced something similar or know someone who has been through this, share it here. These stories of overcoming and recognizing one's own strength are powerful, as they show that even amidst chaos, it is possible to find the way back to safety and self-respect. To conclude, let us reflect on 3 attitudes which, although they may seem small, have an immense impact on the quality of our relationships and on our own happiness. 3 attitudes to avoid. One of the most common traps we fall into is the fear of saying no. How many times have you accepted something you did not want, for fear of displeasing or losing someone? This attitude leads to immense wear and tear, as each yes we give unwillingly consumes a bit of our energy, and little by little, distances us from what truly matters. The truth is, that by saying no to what drains us, we are, in fact, saying yes to ourselves. Another attitude that can be detrimental is being excessively complacent. Sometimes, for fear of leaving the comfort zone, we end up accepting less than we deserve. However, this complacency makes us lose our spark, and others begin to see this stance as a lack of self-worth. Complacency is like sitting in a boat that, although it seems safe, never reaches anywhere. Life demands movement, and with it comes respect, both ours and that of others. Finally, a lack of assertiveness is something that traps us in situations, relationships, and environments that no longer serve us well. Remaining where we are not valued for fear of change is a disservice to our own essence. Recalling the words of Aristotle, courage is the first of human qualities because it guarantees all the others. Being assertive is having the courage to choose what elevates us, even if it means giving up what is already known. Trust is a treasure we must protect, and this begins with the people we choose to have by our side. Each relationship is a choice, and for it to be healthy, it needs to be based on integrity, respect, and mutual responsibility. Value those who walk beside you with honesty, and never underestimate the power of a no when it represents your peace. If these reflections have brought clarity to you, leave a comment with a sentence that summarizes what you desire for your relationships. Something like, "I choose relationships based on truth," can be a great reminder of what really matters. After all, each choice of who we allow into our lives is a decision about the type of peace and happiness we want for ourselves. Write your sentence below and share this commitment with yourself, and see you in the next video.